Hello Divinities, my name is Jay Simone and you're watching Awaken Kemetic Divinity, where I teach spirituality for the newly awakened to help them build a better spiritual foundation. Today's topic is going to be over anger management and healing the inner child. This topic came to me just from what I've been dealing with in my own life personally, and I figured if I'm going through it, then there are probably others that are going through it as well and need some assistance. So first things first, if you're new, please hit that subscribe button. And if you're new or old, please make sure you hit the bell button so you get notifications every time I post. And also make sure you go ahead and hit the like button because I know you're gonna like this video already. This first part of this, emotions. In society, and I've probably talked about this before, it is very common for us to experience a need to push down or shove down our emotions, which is honestly sad because a lot of people, or a lot of issues that I realize I have personally, and you guys may experience this as well, it's just from not being able to properly express our emotions. As I've been going through my spiritual awakening and getting used to the different changes that I have accepted the fact that I'm going to be probably emotional, in fact, extremely sensitive. I think I'm going to be a little bit of a crybaby, but I've made peace with that, and I recognize that that doesn't mean that I'm weak or anything. I think weakness only comes from me letting others use that to manipulate me, which I doubt I would do. Even when I'm in an emotional state, I still think in both terms of emotion and rationality. So I don't really think that's going to be a problem. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. Another thing that I've noticed throughout my spiritual journey is just experiencing emotions so that way I can alchemize them into higher vibrational energies. So what I mean by that is things that bring me pain and suffering or hurt. I've looked at finding different ways to express and release that pain, suffering, and hurt in a way that doesn't harm anyone, in a way that doesn't harm myself, like healthy coping mechanisms, which I mean, all need healthy coping mechanisms. If you don't have any, feel free to reach out. I can help you brainstorm some, or please, before I even get any further with this video, I always stress this, and I cannot stress this enough. Please, please, please get the help of a professional. Spirituality does take a lot of looking at your inner workings, and some people aren't ready to face that, or there may be stuff that there's like trauma underneath everything that they may not be fully ready to address. So by having a trained professional there to help you work through this stuff type of thing, I cannot stress it enough. I know that not everyone can afford a trained professional, so I'm sorry if you're not in a position to do so, but if you are in a position to do so, you should definitely do so. Briefly going back to my previous point, turning these emotions into a more positive vibration is something that I've been trying to do, especially because I think it would make more sense if I give you guys an example of this. So recently I have been interacting with my friend's son, and he's really, really little. But as I'm interacting with him, I'm noticing areas where I felt that my parents failed me. And I'm not saying I'm trying to parent him or anything like that, but I recognize areas where my parents failed me. And so I'm trying to make sure that as I'm around him, I'm expressing to him that those failings aren't, I'm not going to let those failings happen to him. I want him to know that I'm going to support him. Everyone has pain, but when you find ways to turn that pain into more positive outcomes, that is when you are fully in alchemy. And I definitely recommend thinking about that. It is a little bit more advanced, I would say, for dealing with emotions and other things, because to me, the only way that I could personally do alchemy is that I know I'm the type of person to sit and hold grudges and stuff like that. So I think when you become confident in your emotions, holding your emotions for that time when your energy is ready to be spent and put to more useful things, and you turn that alchemy is a little bit more advanced. My main thing is you just want to focus on feeling the emotions that you feel and accepting them for what they are, as long as you're not hurting anyone. And so that's my first point of getting to the point of being okay with your emotions. The next thing you want to do in order to get used to feeling your emotions and working through them is recognize where you don't have control. There are a lot of areas in our lives where we don't have control over them, such as government entities, making choices in politics and stuff like that. And I'm not gonna say we don't really have a voice, because at least in America, we're able to vote and stuff like that. I mean, I'm sure it could be argued that we don't have a voice because of the lobbyists and stuff, but sidebar for another day. hopefully never, because that's just a can of worms I don't want to open. But anyways, just recognizing where you have control of situations and taking advantage of that control is super important. I cannot stress it enough. And it would, recognizing where you have control does kind of help with certain emotions that you can feel. Just really building, like, I'm not saying get rid of your emotions and throw them out, but like if there's emotions that you feel that are just eating you up inside and they're related to something you can't control, I mean, go ahead and feel those emotions, work through those emotions, but like come at your emotions with like letting them happen, being observant to them, which is something you learn as you do meditation. So I cannot recommend meditation enough for your spiritual practice. But relaxing and then, you know, watching the emotion from a distance, knowing what you can and cannot do in order to improve your situation with that emotion. Okay? The next thing you want to do is, like, if you're having like a particularly negative emotion, one thing that I found that's super important, especially with stronger negative emotions, is asking yourself what it is going to take for the other person, thing, organization, whatever it is that wronged you, for you to forgive them. I got that from Kev on Stage, who's a popular YouTuber that I love for his comedy. So if you need some comedy, please check him out. But one of my biggest things was, and this is like something that I've kind of like settled on and started to make peace with throughout the years, because I've even seen people try to provoke me on stuff, and I'm just like, there is no reason for me to like get mad over situations I don't control. I still get hurt and upset with a lot of what goes on in the world, but at the same time, I'm also asking myself, what am I gonna need from that person or situation or to feel like I can forgive them? And when you sit and you contemplate that, wanting to know what's needed for forgiveness, you start to kind of put in perspective, like, not that your emotion isn't valid, but just that it may be a bit much, or you need to find another outlet for it. As we all know, energy cannot be created or destroyed. However, it can be transmuted. So if you're going at it with a very strong negative emotion, this goes back to control. What do you have control over, and what can you do with the things that you have control over to transmute this negative emotion, this really strong frustration, anger, whatever it is that you feel, to something more positive and something more beneficial to society, the collective, or yourself? Like, that's perfectly fine as well. And then my final point that helped me reach this level of peace in my life when it comes to emotions be that I have made it a point to be very clear with people my emotions. And I don't mean everyone, because there's some people I still withhold that information from because I know it's going to hurt their feelings. Sorry, your girl's heartless. But for the people that are in my life that I'm really close to and trying to maintain really good relationships with, I do try to make sure that I'm upfront with them about my emotions whenever we have disagreements, and let them know how I'm feeling and why I'm feeling that way, so that way they understand. If I'm still upset about a situation, they know why I'm still upset about a situation. And with all of those tips, I just want you to keep in mind that the goal is healthy outlets and self-expression. So again, get a therapist if you can. If you can't, I would recommend still trying to reach out to one. From talking with my own personal therapist, I know a lot of therapists will work very hard to make sure that regardless of your income, you still get the mental help that you need. So I would definitely look at that if you can. All right, so the next portion of this video is actually dedicated to some of the reasons that you might find yourself being extremely angry or upset or stuff like that. And I'm speaking from personal experience because this is something that I'm working through on my own as well right now. As you work through your emotions, you may notice that a lot of your frustration, anger stems from stuff that happened to you as a child. So you realize that the source of a lot of things are inner child wounds that were never addressed as a kid. If you're like me, you grew up with your parents kind of dictating everything and not really leaving room for you to be able to express yourself. And when you tried to express yourself, it was not supported by your parents. Like, whether they verbally informed you, if it got to the point of verbal abuse, if it was physically reprimanding you to the point that it may have been physical abuse. Not saying that any of this has happened to me, but I mean, when you're a kid and your parent doesn't support you like that, it really hurts, and that kind of thing sticks with you for a while. And I've been realizing that as I've been going through my shadow work and as I'm being around my friend's child a lot, is that there are so many little things that kids, pick up and hold on to. Like, I'm realizing what I've picked up as a child and held on to for so long. I think I finally reached my breaking point for now making this video, because I feel like I'm going through it, you're probably going through it, and this is what I found helps me. You may find it helpful as well. So I want to let you guys know that as you're recognizing these inner child wounds, go ahead and take the time to reparent that inner child. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it may help with healing a lot of those wounds too, because you're now an adult, or at least because you now have, like, you know, some life experience and perspective. You're definitely like in a better position to do that, because you can see not only your point of view from where you were a kid, from when you were a kid, but also the point of view of like someone older and wiser and having more world experience and rationality. Now, I'm not saying like, you know, your parents were right or anything like that. I still, and maybe just because I'm stubborn, but I still think parents make mistakes, but they don't want to admit to them, and they don't want to apologize to us, because to them, at least from my experience, my parents and their generation, to them, they don't need to apologize to the child for any sort of wrongs. They don't need to take accountability for any possible psychological, mental damage that they could have done, because they're a parent. They can do whatever they want, more or less, or something in the sense of that. I'm not saying it's all right, I'm not saying it's fine, but when you were a kid and you tried to do something and your parent told you because I said so, that, I'm sure that pissed you off. I know it would piss me off. It still would piss me off to this day. So if there's stuff like that that you're holding on to, or that you find is common threads from your parents, instead of looking to them to fix this problem, because I've even contemplated myself, like confronting my parents about this, I've realized that I don't think it would do any actual good, because they are very set in their ways. And I think a lot of people know that their parents are set in their ways, and none of this would have any sort of benefit. So it's up to you to make sure that you take care of yourself, okay, divinities? In order to do that, just again, like I said, the parent, or at least having those two perspectives now come together, it's a lot easier to reparent or heal your inner child. If you're noticing that you're still having like a lot of problems with like anger, frustration and stuff from like stuff in the past, one of the ways that you can work through it is like, you know, writing out how your inner child felt and probably still feels about these situations. Like, if you are in a position where you are comfortable with thinking back on that situation and it won't cause you any sort of like distress or trauma or anything like that, write out what you wanted to say as a kid, and then maybe hug that piece of paper or burn it or whatever you feel is necessary to say, hey, these were my feelings and I recognize these feelings. I recognize you. I acknowledge you. You weren't acknowledged before, but now I'm acknowledging you. And that could bring a lot of healing to that inner child. It can help with cooling a lot of that anger. It can help with working through a lot of that pain. Because think of it this way, it's essentially the wounds that we have on our inner child are essentially like wounds that were never treated, probably got infected, probably were left to fester for God knows how long. So taking the time to repair your inner child, live in those moments of inner child, definitely help. Like, and you can do this at any age, whether you're 30 or you're 101. Going through and recognizing these things that have shaped you into who you are today, while also causing you damage, you know, is a good thing. I do want to say, just quick note, if you decide to burn things, please make sure you're burning things in a fire safe bowl and not being fire hazards. Let's try to not be fire hazards to our environment, despite being people that like to burn things regularly, such as incense, candles, etc. Again, if you have severe trauma, please make sure to like consult a therapist or counselor or just any licensed professional, because I really don't want you guys getting hurt or hurting yourselves by trying to better yourself. Another thing I bring up, or another example I have for the inner child healing, is that maybe your inner child felt like they could never express themselves, and now you're 30-something working a corporate job, 9 to 5, where you have to dress fairly conservatively, and that was something that you never wanted. Thankfully, what I've noticed is that like a lot of places are becoming more casual, so they are kind of giving you leeway with dressing how you want. But like, if your inner child had a more eccentric style, like, go ahead and rock that style. Don't worry about people judging you. Like, indulge your inner child. Like, you're an adult now, so you could still be just a giant kid. Like, that's totally okay. Trust me, it was like a game changer when I realized that I technically, now that I was responsible for myself. I could go to Walmart and buy like those sugar cookies, those really puffy ones that everyone talks about. I could buy those and eat them whenever I wanted for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and no one could tell me otherwise. Or like I could go and just buy icing and eat icing straight out of the carton. Yes, I have a sweet tooth. Don't judge me for it. You would do it too. So go ahead and like, live your wildest dreams, your wildest childhood dreams. And like, or another thing that would happen is like, maybe you like having shiny new toys and could never get a certain toy or always wanted a certain toy. Buy yourself that toy. If they don't have it anymore, scour the internet for it. I'm sure it's on eBay. Or, if you just like buying yourself fancy new things, go ahead and buy yourself a fancy new thing. Live your life, not just for adult you, but also for inner child you. So that way you can heal those wounds that are there, because now your inner child is being recognized and brought to the front. And also, please make sure you're doing this within reason. Like, don't go into debt for this. And if you have any dietary concerns that may have cropped up during adulthood, don't go back and like eat ice cream and now you're lactose intolerant and then you decide to eat ice cream because your inner child loved ice cream. Like, don't do that. With all that being said, I just want to let you guys know that, again, this is something that I've personally gone through. So this is what I've done that helps me, and maybe it'll help you guys as well. If you made it to the end of the video, please leave a black heart in the comments section. If you found the information useful, go ahead and leave a red heart too. And if you have an experience with opening up to your emotions or reparenting your inner child, go ahead and share that in the comments below. I want us to kind of be able to have a conversation around this, especially since, like I said, if I'm going through it, I'm sure there's others going through it, and I just want everyone to know that they're not alone when they go through this type of thing. Anyways, Divinities, I do want to thank you for watching me today. Again, please hit the subscribe button. If you haven't already subscribed, please hit the bell button for notifications. Make sure to leave a like, and please be sure to check out my other social media platforms, my IG, my TikTok, and my Twitter. I don't really use Twitter that much, but I'm still on Twitter as Kemetic Divinity, not Awakened Kemetic Divinity, but everything else is Awakened Kemetic Divinity. Anyways, Divinities, I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Stay blessed.